Many people talk about combating climate change and food instability. Rotary District 5190 is going hands on in Africa to actually take on the challenge. The Green Sahel project is a partnership between 9 clubs within Rotary District 5190, Rotary International, and Senegalese non governmental organization called Volunteer Network for a Green and Prosperous Sahel. Now, that last NGO is quite a mouthful, so we will just refer to them from now on as VNGPS. The aim of the project is to sustainably plant 16,000 fruit trees per year for families along a 200-mile Sahel corridor of Senegal, West Africa, along with building a large community farm serving over 1,000 people in a town called Fonde Alemon. This community farm, organic permaculture techniques are being taught to provide a sustainable crop yield. The main purpose of this project is to implement sustainable solutions to hunger and malnutrition. Secondary benefits include mitigating climate change and the expansion of the Sahara Desert while increasing financial security and biodiversity in the region. For a little context, the Republic of Senegal is located on the Horn of West Africa on the Atlantic coastline. The Sahel is a realm of transition between the Sahara Desert and the southern semi-tropical regions. It stretches across Africa from Senegal to the Atlantic coast to Eritrea on the Red Sea. The Sahara and the Sahel have been expanding in recent decades. As little as 30 years ago, northern Senegal had enough rainfall and biodiversity that people could rely on rain-fed agriculture and foraging to supplement their food. Sometimes youth would form groups, much like Boy Scouts, and live in the wilderness for weeks, only eating what they could hunt and gather. But today, there is nothing in the wilderness to gather. The landscape is basically sand and thorn trees, with a short rainy season that produces short grass for a few months. Malnutrition is a problem. Most people in the region go 9 months without eating a fresh fruit or vegetable and suffer related illnesses. This has a significant impact on child brain development. Additionally, most families have a hard time consuming enough calories. The Green Sahel project was first conceived by Rotary Club of Fallon member Eric Endicott. Eric has a bachelor's degree in agronomy from Iowa State University and is a former Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal. Having backpacked in West Africa and seen the results of many other NGO projects, he was very impressed with the work that VNGPS was doing in the region with little or no resources. Upon returning to the United States, he gathered like-minded Rotary clubs in Rotary District 5190 to form a multi-club district grant. Eric then returned to Senegal in August 2022 to begin and oversee the Rotary Green Sahel project.
What is VNGPS? VNGPS is a Senegalese NGO that is basically a network of volunteers all across the Sahel region of Senegal. It's unlike any NGO that I've ever heard of because not a single member gets paid, not even its founder, Mamadou Babacar Diop, because he works full-time in addition to doing the projects. All these people, all these volunteers, they love working hard, they love planting trees, and they love the environment. And this makes VNGPS such a great partner for Rotary District 5190 because one of the rules of Rotary is that all money donated has to go to buying materials. None of it can go to overhead or labor.
The president and founder of VNGPS is an amazing man named Mamadou Babacar Diop. Growing up a farmer in Guédé Sanchez, Senegal, he eventually went to university in Dakar and earned a master's degree in English literature. He later studied permaculture for 2 years. Most people who make it into university in Senegal later go on to get high-paying jobs in the cities. But Mamadou came back to his community to help people. He has a passion for those in need. So he started VNGPS, and since then, many people have thanked him for the various projects that he has done. VNGPS volunteers are primarily part-time. However, about a dozen are full-time volunteers. These volunteers are mostly in their 20s and come from all walks of life. Some are married women with children. But every day they come together to do manual labor for free. No one in VNGPS gets paid so that all money donated can go directly to helping people instead of going to overhead or labor. The dedication of these volunteers is truly humbling and inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. As the initiator of this project, I told you I got my degrees at the university. I could have stayed in the big cities and make my life, very easily. But I decided to come back, in order to inspire people and tell them that it's possible to stay in your countryside. I mean, in your villages, succeed, and help your village to fight against this climate change and this, hunger.
The first part of the Green Sahel project was the creation of a 22-acre community farm in a town in northern Senegal called Fondé Elimon. In this farm, each family in need was given a plot of donated land that they can farm without rent in order to supplement their household food and income. This land allows the farmers control of the crop and production themselves. This is because in Senegal, one harvest of vegetables can make 2 or 3 times the amount of money per acre of land than can be made by one rice harvest, which typically supports about 6 people per acre. Additionally, vegetables can be harvested 3 or 4 times per year, giving reliable income. So, 22 acres can greatly supplement the income of over 1,000 people. Farmers can also plant and sell their vegetables early to get an even higher price. Most farmers in Senegal work land that they don't own and have to pay rent for, are extremely overcharged for water, and have become reliant on expensive synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Additionally, they are told when to plant their crops, which means the price of their produce is predetermined. These expenses make farming very unprofitable, but people in the region don't have a choice because there are so few jobs there. But thanks to the community farm, at least 1,000 people have a way to supplement their income. VNGPS also teaches farmers organic techniques that save farmers a lot of money, such as composting, applying manure, crop rotation, residue retention, and making their own pesticides from plants. This not only saves the farmers money, but it also preserves the fertility of the land. This is important because the use of synthetic fertilizers is expensive and has actually decreased the fertility of farms all across Senegal since its introduction. The reason behind the effectiveness of organic techniques with high yield outputs at reduced expenses for farmers is likely attributed to the high cost and inferior quality of the chemicals available for purchase in the region. The second part of the Green Sahel project is the planting of 16,000 fruit trees for families all over the Sahel region of Senegal. The fruit trees are more of a long-term investment toward fighting hunger and malnutrition, as it takes at least 3 years for the trees to start producing fruit. But once the tree is established, it requires almost no maintenance and can produce a large amount of fruit up to twice per year. Additionally, there are no wells, pumps, or fencing that must be maintained. The trees provided to the families involved will also help them with hunger because they will be able to sell the fruit, either locally or to large juice distilleries in the cities, and supplement their income.
These mango trees behind me were planted by a hunter 70 years ago, and they still produce fruit twice a year to this day.
Having a lot of trees also reduces the need for man-made structures. In Senegal, people spend most of their time under trees because they are much cooler than the inside of buildings, and consequently houses are more of a status symbol. These trees also add much-needed biodiversity to the river valleys, which is where most of the people of the Sahel live. The first step undertaken by VNGPS was to establish a tree nursery capable of producing 3,000 trees every 6 months. Thanks to District 5190, VNGPS has expanded its nursery, now enabling it to produce at least 16,000 trees per year. The cost effectiveness is noteworthy, as this tree nursery allows VNGPS to produce tree saplings at a remarkably low cost of only 2.4 cents per sapling, making it one of the most affordable tree planting projects in Africa. The second step involves distributing the tree saplings to individual families, schools, mosques, and businesses that request them. But what's the use of planting trees if we can't ensure their growth to maturity? Well, VNGPS boasts a vast volunteer network that covers every village and neighborhood where trees are planted. These dedicated volunteers routinely monitor the progress of the planted trees. In cases where a family neglects their tree, the sapling is carefully removed and given to someone else, although such instances are fortunately infrequent. Moreover, in areas where no volunteers reside nearby, VNGPS requires all families seeking trees to dig their own holes. This approach ensures accountability. As if a family fails the simple task of digging the hole, VNGPS withholds the tree. The reasoning behind this is that responsible hole digging reflects the likelihood of taking good care of the tree thereafter. How did the project go? The first part of the project was buying a reliable vehicle. This took about 3 weeks because the only place to buy good vehicles for a reasonable price is in Senegal's capital, Dakar. Also, after the car was purchased, the DMV of Senegal took about 2 weeks to process the vehicle's registration. After the vehicle was purchased, Rotary then started buying all of the materials for the community farm for Fondé Element. They had to go to various vendors in northern Senegal and Mauritania to buy 3 pumps, hundreds of meters of pipes, and roll after roll of fencing. The fencing is very important to keep the goats out of the vegetable fields. Without a fence, it is basically impossible to grow crops because goats from the herders will eat everything. The most labor-intensive part of the project was installing the fences. VNGPS, like Rotary, is mostly made up of part-time volunteers who have regular jobs, but it also has over a dozen full-time volunteers that work various projects almost every day. In fact, there is a huge waiting list of young adults who want to become full-time volunteers because of how popular VNGPS is becoming. So, after all of the materials were bought and driven to Fondé Element, all of the full-time volunteers, including Eric, went to Fondé Element to start installing the fence line. One nice part about this project was that there was a house that the volunteers could sleep in for free. The volunteers sometimes have to sleep on the dirt during some of their projects, so this was a nice treat from a family of Fondé Element. On average, the volunteers worked about 50 hours per week. While setting up the fence, some volunteers also installed the pumps and pipes. Meanwhile, the volunteers went back to the town of Guédé-Chanchez, the home base of VNGPS, and started planting the 3,000 ready tree saplings. VNGPS organized planting days in several towns and villages where many young adults would get together and plant the fruit trees. This took a few weeks. Afterwards, the volunteers worked on expanding the tree nursery to be able to produce 16,000 tree saplings per year. First, they had to dig ditches for the tree saplings to be placed in. Then they filled all of the plastic sacks with sand, compost, and manure. Finally, they planted seeds and aligned all of the tree sacks in the ditches so they could easily water them. Eventually, the tree saplings began growing. Volunteers got there to water the saplings every day. Water has to be drawn from a well by a bucket. The dedication of these volunteers is truly inspirational. Regarding financial accountability, our dedicated Rotary project manager Eric diligently managed all receipts, digitized them, and posted each in a spreadsheet that was routinely updated. The spreadsheet included all expenses with the corresponding receipt file names aligned with each item purchased. This level of meticulousness ensured that every single dollar spent was thoroughly accounted for, despite the language differences and monetary exchange rate fluctuations. Furthermore, recognizing the importance of monitoring tree growth for the long term, Eric and the team made it a point to capture photos of as many trees as possible, complete with geological coordinates and dates. This approach enables VNGPS to keep a well-organized record and track the progress of these trees effectively well into the future. Development is slow. Projects that focus on people helping themselves is particularly slow. The results are good, but a little bit different from what we expected. A few years ago, another NGO came to the area and built an 8-acre community farm for the people of Fondé Element and its surrounding villages. But like most NGOs, they came in, installed pumps, pipes, flattened the land, dug canals, built a fence, and then immediately left without educating the people about how the farm can increase their families' incomes. When VNGPS started setting up our fence near Fondé Element, the volunteers built relationships with the community and educated them on how the farm could help them support themselves. So, at first, people started going back to that old farm because the ground was already flat and the canals were already dug. However, once the 8-acre space filled up, people slowly started growing crops in the land that VNGPS fenced off. More and more people join each week to dig canals and flatten the land for farming.
You see, a lot of NGO projects they just go in and then they just leave. And, so they can get a lot of projects done, but nobody bothers to stay there and really educate people, which is why 5 months ago there was nothing here. And, and then afterwards, now all of a sudden people are coming back because VNGPS educated them. And I've been backpacking a lot in like Africa, Nepal, some other countries. I've seen the aftermath of a lot of NGO projects. And I mean, there's just a lot of NGO projects that years later, there's really nothing to show for it. So VNGPS is really great because when they start a project, they stay, and they know the language and they know the culture and everybody, and they stay and they make sure that the project is truly sustainable and lasts for a long time.
We are so happy to this with this project of Rotary because it's influencing people positively, and it's calling people who fled their country, who fled their villages in order to look for a better life. So now they are coming back. They are coming to their villages in order to practice agriculture, to fight against hunger, and also to help people to plant a lot of trees, which means to fight against deforestation, to fight against cutting the trees
And malnutrition.
Exactly, and malnutrition. So we are so happy to have Rotary with us. Thank you, Rotary. Thank you so much.
Everyone involved in the project is so grateful to Rotary District 5190.
They're saying thank you, Rotary. They're saying Ajrama. Ajrama.
Thank you.